Retirement isn't just about having enough. It's about making sure your plan works as long as you do. And for women, that's a bigger challenge than most realize. You see, women live 6 years longer on average than men, yet they retire with about 25% less wealth. That 1 2 punch can create a minefield in retirement, but it doesn't have to. Today, Ben and I are breaking down 4 strategies that can turn longevity both into security and the ability to live that life of significance. Stay tuned, you won't want to miss this.
Welcome in. This is Legacy Beyond Wealth. Glad you're with us again. I'm Ben George with Rob Shelton, founder of Axio Wealth Management, and you can find him online, axiowm.com. Today's focus on women, Rob, and I know you got kind of a story to kind of kick us off, don't you?
I do. I remember this, God, just like it was yesterday. It's that vivid in my mind. I had this spouse of a business owner, that both clients, the husband and wife, and the wife called me and said, Rob, my husband's in the hospital. I thought, wow, I didn't even know he was in poor health. I mean, we just met, 2 months earlier. And she mentioned that they thought he had the flu, but it turned into being a rare form of terminal cancer. Obviously dropped everything, raced over to the hospital. And I remember seeing him in the hospital bed there. And this is one of those experiences that really was a focal point in my career that changed everything. Grabbed my arm and kind of pulled me down to the bedside and said, Rob, promise me you're going to take care of my wife, that you'll make sure that everything's going to be okay for her. And, here's a gentleman that created such a successful business I looked up to as a strong individual. And unfortunately, we're all going to have to cross that rainbow bridge, I guess you can call it there, Ben, where unfortunate things happen. And at that moment of helplessness, reaching out and asking us to make sure that we take care of his wife. And, when you look at it, women, 70% of them are those that live in assisted living facilities. Only 30% of men are there because they tend not to live as long. And then you think about it, 80% more women are likely to be in poverty during retirement. And so I could really come back to where that husband had that on his mindset, wanting to make sure that his wife was taken care of. Good news is that happened over 10 years ago, and we've been able to do some great things for his wife and work through a lot of difficult issues that was there in the family business. And she has since actually remarried and never thought she would, but found enjoyment now in her new marriage. But as we think about it, there are a lot of unique issues that women face that I think are important for people to be aware of.
Yeah, let's start there then, because I think, when you talk about planning, you don't think about all the different risks by gender, right? But what makes their journey so different as women?
I think when you look at women, some things that we need to look at are address that there really are gaps in pay that they get. That means there's less money to be able to save for their own retirement that's out there because of those pay gaps. And they're going to be the ones that live longer statistically. So those things right off the bat kind of put women, if you will, at maybe a disadvantage. Some may look at it as a disadvantage. I try to look at that as more of an opportunity. There's more years to be able to have an influence and make a difference and really live a life of significance that's out there.
All right, definitely take some careful planning if you are a woman to make sure that you are in a good position over the long term. So what's the first strategy you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think plan for stages. If we think back to that example that I gave in the beginning with that husband and wife, when the first husband passed away, at that point in time, that surviving spouse, the wife, did not want to even think about dating. In fact, it took her probably 8 years to be able to think about even wanting to get back into the dating field. And so I think when we look at retirement, sometimes we imagine it as one big chapter where we probably ought to break it up into smaller chapters. And I love that as we look at working with clients, we draw a timeline up and plan in different stages. And that has to be fluid because life's going to change and those chapters are going to change. But you want to make sure that we're thinking of it and building enough flexibility that we can make sure you have the resources to adapt and to change so you don't have to do things out of necessity or need, but because you want to. And it's about living that life that you want to be able to live.
All right. So planning for retirement in stages is kind of the first thing to be thinking about and something that Axio Wealth can help you with. What about strategy number two, Rob?
Yeah, so important for that spouse to stay involved in finances. Remember my wife pulling me aside and saying, Rob, you know where everything's at. You're doing our plan because it's kind of what I do for a living. But she hates talking anything about money or finance. And it's always been a sore topic for us to sometimes have to do where I'm doing most of the work. And so, one thing that we've done is we actually have our own financial advisor. It's a member of my team that sits down with us, and my wife attends on a quarterly basis. And we want to make sure that she feels as much as a partner in the planning process as I am. And one of the key things to be able to ask is just one simple question for that spouse, and that is, what do I need to understand today? You don't have to understand everything in one shot, but if we can take bite-sized pieces and you feel comfortable over time, that's really key. But here's the most important one. I want to make sure my wife has a relationship that she knows she can be able to call, that is already established, that she has trust and confidence in, if anything like that were to happen.
Yeah, that's so important, and you want to have that relationship there so that you're not caught off guard. Are there any other steps that you'd recommend? Maybe just one step to consider if you want to stay more engaged, if you're someone that wants to be more involved in the finances.
Yeah, I think that's really it. Is attend the meetings that you possibly can. Sit in every advisor meeting that there is, and making sure. And if you feel a little bit left out, mention that to the advisor. It's important for them to be able to know. I try to make sure that we don't. And I want to make sure that I'm never talking down to a client or above the client, but right with the client and educating them along the way. And that's important to have that relationship, that you have a professional that you feel like can have that honest conversation with, that you're at their same level, and that we're able to be able to communicate and educate along the way.
All right, we've got 4 strategies for women. Again, these are ones that matter most, right? When you talk about retirement, when you talk about longevity, what's strategy number 3?
Work smarter and longer. You know, the Pew Research Center says that 60% of workers who change jobs saw higher real earnings. And I think that you need to think about that, especially women in the field, is have that honest conversation with your current employer. Take a look at it. I've always been amazed as I've worked with different business owners over time, and how few people are willing to take that risk. We had a good family friend of ours that was frustrated. She hadn't seen a raise in over 7 years. And her husband continued to try to admonish her, go talk about a raise, but it wasn't something that she felt necessarily very comfortable about. The end, she did, and that was very important. And so I think having that open communication with your current employer, and if it's not there, it's okay to seek for other opportunities that might be available for you out there, and have that self-confidence in yourself to be able to seek for those opportunities.
How does that work kind of factor into that retirement equation for women, Rob? What are some of the things that you've seen?
One, you need to be compensated for the value that you provide. And if you're not being justly compensated, you're setting yourself up for not being able to have that financial security in the future. Because the more money that you have for the value that you provide, gives you the opportunity to save more and to build more of that retirement fund or that financial freedom for yourself. The other thing that I think is important is it helps you to stay engaged and to stay sharp. If you're there and you're trying to build, and I see that with my own employees and trying to encourage them, hey, I want you to be hungry. I want you to find ways to continue to improve. Let's talk about it. Let's put you on an employee improvement program, not because you're in trouble, but because I want you to improve as an employee. I want to invest in you. And those are the type of relationships you really should be looking for, that provide that value back to yourself. And then to touch on this working longer aspect, a lot of times we may say, hey, I can hang it up. But, we have some clients that are still in their 70s and working, not because they have to financially, but because they get so much more out of their job and the satisfaction that they have, that they want to maintain that job. They want to do it because it's a passion and a love that they have, not because they have to do it financially.
Are you ready to unlock the freedom to live your best life? Schedule your no-cost 60-minute discovery meeting with our team today. During this session, we'll take the time to understand your family story and financial dreams. Together, we'll craft a personalized roadmap designed to help you achieve your goals. Let's explore how we can unlock the freedom for you and your family to thrive. Just click the link in the description of today's show to get started.
Nice. Some good things to keep in mind there. It takes us to our last strategy here. As you talked about saving, that's what we're focusing on now, right?
Yeah, be intentional. I mean, you can't just go through the motions. And, when you think about it, the study showed that women are projected to retire with 75% of the wealth that men have. And so we want to make sure that we look to be able to put enough money away to make sure that that wife, that surviving spouse, has enough to be able to maintain them. And that means that we need to look at maybe doing catch-ups where possible. I always talk about monkey traps with clients and saying, if you go back and you look through your spending, look for those traps. Where's the money going that really isn't where you want it to be intentionally, but it just kind of went there? And let's put in an intentional plan to save that money or put it away, or a portion of that money that really would be more intentional versus just kind of going with the flow.
I like that. And when you talk about saving intentionally, what does that mean to you? What do you have in mind when you lay that out there for someone?
Yeah, just kind of like we talked about there, we want to make sure that where the money is headed is in alignment with your goals and your values. So I talk about different monkey traps that are out there. One, for some people, it might be that Amazon account where it's just so easy to order stuff that you really don't necessarily need, and it doesn't necessarily align with your values. So taking a look, taking that pause, that's what I love to do quarterly with clients as we do a check-in with their finances. Where is the money headed, and is there anything that isn't in alignment with our values and our needs that's taking us away from our goals that we're just not being very conscious about?
I love that. So 4 strategies there to consider. Again, if you want to talk with Rob, discuss these personally for yourself, or want to get more involved in the financial side of your family, get in touch at AxioWM.com. But again, it's all about kind of reframing longevity, right? I mean, I think a lot of people think about this as a risk, but it sounds like you look at it also as an opportunity.
Man, if you prepare for it, what a great blessing it can be. I mean, my own grandma, we celebrated her 100th birthday this last year, and how
Nice.
awesome that was. And I can see the influence she still has on my kids. And so longevity doesn't have to be a burden. It can be an amazing blessing, but you have to be able to prepare appropriately for it.
Yeah, you'd love to be able to wake up 20 years into retirement and feel healthy, confident, and just knowing that you're aligned with what your vision is, and that's your opportunity that is ahead of you right now, right? And that's why you plan for longevity, turning that risk into opportunity and wealth into significance. And you can do that with Axio Wealth Management. All right, very good conversation, Rob. Hopefully that we helped out some women today. Again, subscribe to the video too if you like what you heard. And we try to educate you and just bring some of these concepts to life with Rob and share some stories and kind of help you understand the process a little bit better. But we appreciate you being here and watching this video. And Rob, thanks again for your time today.
Thank you.